Joan Davis is a nurse with over 20 years of wellness experience. Her husband's unexpected heart attack led her to discover the body of research exploring the connection between diet and disease. She earned her certificate in plant-based nutrition and currently volunteers for Dr. Michael Greger's nutritionfacts.org website. Joan utilized a background in teaching to develop programs that share the how and why of eating whole, plant-based foods. As a former cruise lecturer, she has learned the value of edutainment while educating audiences. Her message: getting older doesn't have to mean getting sick, and your genes are not your destiny. Nice round of applause for Joan Davis.
Thank you. Thanks for the night. I have a big teacher voice, so I don't think I'll need the mic, but we'll see. Can you hear me in the back? Fine? Okay. Can you hear me in the back now? Okay. Then I can roam a bit. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm from the Chicago area. And I want to tell you a little bit about, I've done lots of nutrition programs, but we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to take a virtual trip. Are you with me? Will you go with me? Okay. We're going to go to a kind of an exciting place, a huge food corporation. And I'm going to have you, we could probably advance the screen. We're going to SOS Technologies. That's Salt, Oil, and Sugar, the formal name for that food corporation. And I'm going to have you do something a little different. You weren't told during the introduction, but I was a former teacher. I like my audience to know where we're going. Okay, so we are going to SOS Technologies, and you get to ask questions, and you'll be meeting Cindy, the food chemist, and Mick, the marketing manager, and then plant-based Joan, and we'll review some of the things you learned at that food corporation. Okay, it's just about time to meet Cindy. You said you're willing to go with me, and we will be discussing what you've learned. Now, here's a disclaimer, folks. You might not feel real comfortable what Cindy has to say or what Mick has to say, but be polite. Don't woo, please. And we'll talk about your feelings of what you've learned. Is that fair? Okay, then let's get on the bus. Cindy's going to be waiting for you. I'm going to say bye-bye because she's going to take it from there. Hi, I'm Cindy, the food chemist. I'm so happy to have you here. You know, we don't get many visitors here. You know, there's a lot of competition in this industry, and there's a lot of secrets. A lot of competition, a lot of secrets. Now, you've all been authorized that you're going to come in here and not share anything that I tell you, right? No photos, no cameras, no notes, but I understand you're authorized and you've all signed that you aren't going to share some of the secrets I'm going to share with you. Now, I have so much to tell you that what we thought is it would be best if I had you write some questions. So I appreciate several of you wrote in questions, and my secretary very nicely typed those up and imported them into my PowerPoint. So I have your questions, and I'll be glad to answer those. And then I understand I don't have all day, you don't have all day, so you'll be moving along to talk to Mick, our great marketing manager. And then that escort that brought you here, I guess she'll meet you, Joan, plant-based Joan. I heard that she'll be talking to you afterwards. So let's get started. We might be able to go to the very next question. Oh, I see the question. We've lost the question, but I see the answer. And the question was, what do you do here at SOS Technologies? Well, I'll tell you, we have a whole team of professionals who help us design and market our special foods. We have engineers. They set up the equipment. the processes. So we need them. And then we have biologists. They're really important to us chemists because they tell us how the body works and what chemicals might be helpful in defeating some of your natural systems, your hormonal systems, your satiety where you feel satisfied, your hunger systems. So the biologists really help us to, manipulate that a bit. And then we have researchers. Now they're important because they can develop studies to show how good our foods are, or maybe at least they're not as bad as some people say. So we really appreciate our researchers. We have psychologists that teach us a little bit about human buying behavior and human food choices about food. We have our lobbyists. Oh, those are the ones with the big bucks. It's important because they can influence what is being regulated. We don't want laws that, like that bad one about trans fats, we can't use them much anymore. Well, you can use a certain amount, but basically trans fats, that was something we used a lot. We can't do that anymore. So we want those lobbyists to pay those regulators very well so we get laws that are favorable to what we do here. And then there's finally chemists. Oh, I didn't mention the lawyers. We got those, of course, too. But I'm one of the chemists. And I think I have the best job because food technology is so changing. If we look at the next screen, we can do so much with food these days. We can alter the taste of food and the texture of foods. We can look at making new foods or food-like substances, some people will call our products. But it's changed so much, so drastically, especially in the last 20 years. We can imagine foods. 80%, did you know that 80% of the foods that we're eating now didn't exist 100 years ago? Couldn't even be imagined. Those poor people, they were eating like plain potatoes and beets and broccoli. Oh, we have so much more variety. And there's good reasons. There's some kind of political pressure, financial pressure for us to keep producing new foods. So part of it is we have so many things we can work with. We can add things and subtract things. Let's talk about the subtracting. Foods have fiber. That weighs a lot. And if we can take the fiber out, we can make those delightful, crispy, airy snacks that all of you love, Americans love. We can make potato chips and cheese curls if we take the fiber out. So that's one thing we do, and it's a lot cheaper to package it and ship it, and a lot of times the longer shelf life. So that's one of the things we do. We mostly get rid of the fiber. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, I heard fiber is good for you. Well, it is, but you got to be practical. And we can always add fiber powder, if we need to, and then we can say it's got fiber in it. So that's kind of taken care of. But the most important thing are the 3 additives. I've told you what we mostly subtract, but it's important what we add. And the 3 big ones, before we get into this, let me tell you, let me see how smart you folks are. What are the 3 big additives? What was the name of the company I'm working for? SOS. SOS. Do you remember? S, salt, oil, sugar. Some people call the oil fat, but SOS is an easy way for you to remember our name. So those are the big additives. But there's a lot more additives out there. Artificial colors. We all like color, right? Those bright orange packages of cheese, they catch your eye. So we have artificial colors. We have bulking and anti-bulking agents. Sometimes we want to make the product bulk up and, look bigger. Fills up the packages, people like that. Anti-caking. You don't want food that kind of cakes together. So we'll put some anti-caking agent in it. Glazing agents. Ooh, that looks good, shiny. So we have that to work with. We have emulsifiers. Do you know what emulsification is? Let me tell you. It's nothing to be afraid of. Your grandma used to use it all the time. You got fat. Back then they might have had Crisco. Well, people look at Crisco, oh, that's fat. I don't want to eat something that's like that. So we put it in batter. We emulsify it. We mix it together. And that's how we get croissants and really fat-filled crackers. Ever see where you put a croissant on a paper towel and it's greasy? People don't like to see that grease. So we emulsify it so it is, at least when you're buying it, it doesn't look greasy, okay? We use hydrolyzed protein. We can add some hydrogen. While that's negative in terms of press these days, it's possible that we can add some hydrolyzed proteins, and that takes it from, it adds a hydrogen particle, and it makes it work better for us. It's more convenient to work with. And then we can add vitamins and minerals. You know, they don't work quite as well as the natural ones, but we can add, you know, so we can say, has vitamins and minerals. We can always say that on the front if we add some artificial, ones that are not in the food itself. We can make apple juice, take out some of the vitamins, but then we can add them in powdered form later, and then contains, you know, vitamin C, vitamin A, whatever, okay? You know, there's actually 5,000 chemicals that we can add, and it's growing. Oh, it's such a great time to be a chemist, I'm telling you, a food chemist, because there's so much we can add. Okay, we've talked about what we can subtract, what we can add. Let's move on to, because you asked, what do we do here? Basically, we make food that's easy to eat, and we do a lot of changing of the original food, okay? Now, I hope I answered that first question, what do we do here? Second question, how do you create food that's so appetizing that we can't stop eating them and we end up eating more than we want? Well, there's ways we have of doing that. And I believe on the next screen, let me see what's coming up. Oh, my favorite word. Do you know this word? If we hit it again, we're going to have hyperpalatability. I bet you can figure out what it means. Hyper, you know, is increased, sometimes artificially increased. That's hyper, and palatability, good tasting or taste sensation. So what do our products do? Hyperpalatability, great increased taste. Love that concept, and we're really good at it. When you eat fruit or vegetable, it's palatable, it tastes good, but we can increase that sensation. By the way, we add chemicals, and that will make you it may almost be addictive for you. That's hyperpalatability. Okay, now we can go on. One of the ways we do that is we add sugar. But hyperpalatability, I think we need to understand just a little bit more about it. It is the way that you taste it and it dissolves in your mouth. You've eaten Cheetos, haven't you? Do you chew Cheetos? A lot of times you put them in your mouth, or like with Pringles, they just dissolve, don't they? That's part of hyperpalatability. It instantly gives this big rush of flavor, which we like. And that means that our pleasure sensations in our brain are getting a big dose of pleasure, okay? The problem is, if you eat something like Cheetos or, my favorite is the Doritos, and it's from another company, but it will dissolve, especially those sauces that we might put on the top, dissolve in your mouth. And, oh my goodness, I finished the whole pack, or I finished the whole box, and you're still hungry. We like that because that means you're going to go buy more of our products. But hyperpalatability it gives you that sensation that you're eating something. It quickly dissolves, and then you're hungry again, so you'll want more. That's why we love that concept of hyperpalatability. Now, some of you had a pretty good question here. Why do so many of your products have so much sugar in them? Okay, and like I told you folks, you know, we don't get many visitors here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go to some of my notes because I'm used to being in the lab, not talking, you know, like this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. I took some notes myself here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about sugar. Oh, yes, this reminds me. With sugar, you have to go back and look at evolution. You know, back in caveman times, there wasn't all the food that we have now. So what did you have to do? You had to look for things that were concentrated calories. A lot of times that would be the fruit, maybe even dried fruit that you could find that maybe had been on the tree for a while. That's concentrated calories. And that's what we needed if we're cavemen or women, because we can't go to a 7-Eleven. So we evolved to have a sweet tooth, because that would hold us over if we don't find an animal that, you know, we're going to hunt, or we weren't growing crops, so we had to look for things, plants. And those plants that had concentrated calories are what we wanted. Now, things are different now. We can find calories wherever we look. In fact, that's one of our, well, Mick will tell you about that. But we still have that sweet tooth. We didn't lose it. And we just take advantage of it here. We know you like sweet things, so we give you what you want. Now, sometimes maybe it's not needed. I mean, we add sugar to the peaches, canned peaches, sugar to ketchup. You know, we like sugar because we know you like sugar. So we're just giving you what you want. Now we're kind of crafty. There's a lot of different names for sugar because you folks are, you know, maybe got the impression that sugar's not so good for you. So then we rename it. And you don't have to worry about it. You know, now it's in labels, and if you learn labels, but who reads labels these days, right? So we put sugar in a lot of products. We were really doing well with the high fructose corn syrup. Oh, we could add that. We were adding it to a lot of products. And some people got wise and said, you know, oh, that doesn't sound real healthy, and it's now regulated. But high fructose corn syrup, we can call it something else. In fact, I see my assistant saying, no, don't say that. So, okay, corn syrup. Corn syrup, and still there are some regulations, so we're using a little less of that. But bottom line is, you have a sweet tooth, and we want to help you satisfy that sweet tooth. So a lot of our foods do have sweeteners in them, but sometimes we use different names, slight different formulations. So you may not see sugar on the label if you're a label looker. Okay. I think that pretty much tells you what I wanted to say about sugar, other than we're going to call high fructose. It's corn syrup. Let's go to the next question. Oh, salt. Well, the question was, I know this can contribute to high blood pressure and other conditions. Can you make products with less salt? Well, again, it's like sugar. I guess I forgot to tell you. Sugar, you can add quite a bit, but then it gets to the point, too much. Have you ever had like maybe cupcakes with cloyingly sweet frosting on them? And what's happened is you've been eating that sugar, and then you hit a point where it says, oh, this is too sweet. What we want to do is get to the bliss point. Bliss point means just before you're going to say this is too sweet. So we work a lot with the concept of bliss point for sugar. And the good thing is with salt, it's the same thing. The really good thing, as far as we're concerned, is we can manipulate that. If you expose customers to more and more sugar, you can get their tolerance to get higher. Same thing with salt. Salt and sugar are quite alike. You have a certain amount of salt, and then it's, oh, this is too salty. But if we keep giving you lots of salt, or if you keep having saltier and saltier foods, suddenly you say, this is too salty, and you won't buy. You now it goes the other way. We don't like to think about that, but, you can train your taste buds. It takes a little patience, and you'll learn to, oh, this used to taste really sweet. There's a really good example of that with people who used to drink whole dairy milk, and then they decided, oh, I don't want so much fat, so I'll go into less fat. And maybe you tried 2%, and then maybe went down to 1%. And then a friend or maybe then even skim milk. Then a friend invites you over and has some cookies and serves you some whole milk. And you take one sip, this tastes like cream. This is way too rich. Well, we can do the same thing with salt and sugar. We can, you get exposed to certain amounts, and after a while we've manipulated your taste buds. That's a good thing for us, because that means we can put more sugar. And sugar is a lot cheaper than other ingredients. Same thing with salt. We don't have to add salt to some of our foods, but you have a taste for salt, just like you have a sweet tooth, and we can get that so that you like more and more salt. And I'll be honest with you, I told you we're adding lots of chemicals, right? Well, chemicals, they kind of taste like chemicals, right? So we need to camouflage that. And what's cheap? Salt. If we add more salt, we don't have to add expensive spices to camouflage those tastes. We just add salt. So that's one of the reasons that we put salt in. And also, have you ever bought something and maybe some crackers that you really liked, and they had quite a bit of salt in them, but you bought the salt-free? What does it taste like? Cardboard, right? So, we have to be cognizant of what you're going to buy. We're careful about it. We buy what you want, and you want salt, or the most of our customers want that salt. So as far as, can we make products with less salt? Yeah, sure we can, but you wouldn't buy it, and we have to pay attention to that. Let's go on to the next one. Oh boy, now we get into the fat. It seems that many packaged goods we eat, including those made by SOS Technology, are surprisingly high in fat. Why is that? Well, once again, you've gotten a taste of fat, and fat, let's face it, tastes good. Okay, and if it's presented in a way that's appealing. Now, we all have had, like, maybe soup, and there's a layer of oil on the top of it. Most people, I don't want that. You don't want to see the fat, but there's ways we can make it so you don't see it, and then it'll taste good to you. So let's take a look at what those are. Emulsification, I already told you about that. Do you remember what that is? Emulsification, you put the oil, Crisco or whatever, into a batter, and then it's more palatable. Or hydrogenation, where you can make something that's a liquid into a solid, and then it's more palatable, okay? And then there's something called taste synergy. And what we found is that we can take fat, and that will give you some satisfaction, taste satisfaction. But if you put it with sugar or salt, or all three together, that's the winning combination, that will give us more sensation than each one separately. So the parts are greater than, the whole is greater than the parts. That's taste synergy, and we use that all the time because we know if we add fat, let me give you an example. I don't mean to pick on one candy bar, and I know some of you can't see. This is a Snickers, but it could be any kind of candy bar. And what happens with Snickers? When you think of Snickers, what do you think of? The sugar or the fat? Some of you are saying both. A lot of people think, oh, this is a really sweet treat. But if you take the time to look at the label, you'll find out that the majority of calories come from fat, not sugar. But we think of it as a sugary treat. But meanwhile, fat's cheap. And we added a whole lot of fat, and then we don't have to add so much sugar. So again, it's economical, and you're going to like it, you know. So that's one of the tricks that we work with as far as getting that right combination. Now, you know the best combination of taste synergy, and I wish we would have invented it, potato chips, because that's got all three. You take the potato, which after a while starch in your mouth that turns into sugar. Then you add salt, and then of course you add the sugar, the salt, and the, I'm forgetting, salt, sugar, and oil, fat. Well, of course we add that. You think of McDonald's, you're putting it in the oil, or that's the French fries. Or if you're making potato chips, you bring out a potato chip, you've got all three flavors in one delectable snack treat. That's taste synergy for you. So all these concepts help us, okay, and that's why we put fat in. Okay, question number 6. I know many of SOS products contain soy oil, but I've heard that soy oil has some health risks. Is there any truth to that? Well, kind of caught us there. People like soy oil because they think of it in terms of, oh, soy, that's healthy, right? And it is healthy. Soy oil, that might be another thing. Do you know what you have to do to make oil out of soy? You know those little nuggets? You know what a soy nugget looks like? Have you ever seen one? Kind of looks like a little rock, right? A rounded rock. Well, we used to squeeze it, mechanical squeezing, and we got 70% of what oil is in. Hard to believe there's much oil in a soybean, but there is. It's not like olive oil. Olive oil, you take an olive, squeeze it, you're going to get some liquid out. With soy nuggets, you still can get some oil, but it takes a lot of squeezing. But here's where it's hard to be a chemist, because they want to use, our management is really pushing us to use chemicals, because the chemicals can get up to 99% of the oil. They just wring that little soybean dry. And there's a problem. The chemical that we have to use to do that is hexane, which OSHA has now said is a neurotoxin. So there's studies about that right now. And when you use soy oil to cook, we learn, and this is bad news, we learned that it can produce some products, AGEs, that are harmful when things are cooked in soy oil. So here's what I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. This is what our lawyers have told us to say about this. Okay, our lawyers have told us we can say right now, no public health, professional health study published has concluded definitively that soybean oil is harmful. So like other industry leaders, what we're doing is we're monitoring the research. And if we have to, we'll use another chemical, that maybe isn't so hazardous. Or we'll learn to put warnings on don't be frying with soybean oil. But for right now, you don't have to worry. Okay. One of the things before we move on, I want to make sure that you know, it takes a lot of work to go from a whole food like this. This has the fiber in it, right? It's heavy. I found the biggest one I could, so hopefully you folks in the back can see that baked potato. Okay, you still live in Idaho. They call these number 1 spuds. This is a number 1 for sure. Okay, we do make, well, here we go. SOS has our brand of potato chips. Do you know how much work it is to go from here to here? Think about it. First of all, you peel it. And I know there's some nutrition in peelings, but a lot of people won't buy, chips that have dark edges like this. So we peel it, and then we use our machines to take the fiber out, to extrude it, to make it into a mash. And then we have to cook it, of course, in oil. And then we have to have specialized machines to slice it just perfectly. It's not the potato anymore, though, remember. It is this mash that we've kind of made maybe into a mold. And, those Pringle folks, they have it down perfectly. Every single chip is shaped just right, So that's when you go from here to here, or even to the Pringles, there's a lot of steps in between. So I kind of want to, stress to you that we're dealing with a lot of procedures as well as a lot of chemicals. I think we're about out of time. Did we have one more question? Oh, here's my screen to show you what we do to those poor little soybeans. We dry them, we dehull them, we flatten them into flakes, we de-oil them. That's why we're doing this, to get the oil, right? There's a mechanical way, which I told you about, 77% of the oil we can get out of there, and chemical, and then you can get 99%. But unfortunately, then we can get aldehydes. That's when you cook with it. And the hexane, for processing it, leads to some neurotoxic potential. We haven't had the definitive studies yet. So, okay. So now you know a little bit about soybeans and what we can do to them. Here's question number 7. Oh, boy, question number 7. You look lean and healthy, ma'am. I'm wondering if you regularly eat many of the foods that your company produces. Okay, you're not going to go out of this room saying this, but I'm a chemist. I know what's on those labels. I know what they can do. So, no, I do not eat our products, but you better not be saying that when you leave here. I think it's time for me to go. I think Mick is about ready, so I'll say goodbye, and Mick will be here shortly. Hi, I'm Mick, the marketing manager, and my job is to sell, and I do it really well, I have to tell you. I've been here with the company for a long time. Like I think Cindy told you, we don't get many visitors, but you're lucky. My time is limited because I got to get out there and sell, but I do want to answer, and I understand you had about 7 questions that Cindy's secretary got ready. So let's start with the questions. Number 1, how has food marketing changed in the last 100 years? It's hard to believe, but people used to grow their own food. And then they'd go to these piggly wiggly little stores, and you might find 50 products. Thank goodness now we've expanded, and we now have hundreds of products available, and they're growing every day. Now, you might not realize it, but there's a reason why we have so many products. Did you know that most of our food companies were bought by non-food corporations about in the 80s? So Kraft, Pepsi, they were sold to non-food corporations, and non-food corporations had the deal that you have to be receptive to your shareholders. And usually that means you have to put out new products and make profits. We never had that pressure before. But now there's great pressure to keep selling more and more products and keep making the shareholders happy. Okay? Well, that's hard when you do it with food. With food, there's only so many calories we need. Do you know now? Because food manufacturing and marketing is very profitable, okay? So there's a lot of competition. So we have to keep churning out more products and inventive ways to market. And it can be problematic because you folks don't need any more food. Look around, not maybe at this crowd, but look around at other crowds. People are eating too many calories. And here, my job is to make you eat more. How am I going to do that? Well, we've got some tricks up our sleeve, but I'm wanting you to appreciate that I've got a tough job trying to sell. Now we have 4,000 calories per person. If we took, a survey and then looked at how much is in production, the experts tell us we've got 4,000 calories available to each person. Now, some eat maybe more than that. But 4,000, we don't need that much, so I'm pushing a product that's hard to push. Okay, so that gives you a little bit about how marketing has changed. Let's go on to the next question. This is the reason why how it's changed. I told you why. Here's how. It's because we process our food more and more. You know, back in your great-grandpa's or grandma's day, if they did go to one of those little grocery stores, well, they might have just had their own food, grow their own food, or go to a neighbor's farm. But then once we started getting grocery stores, not the mega stores, I'm talking little grocery stores, they might have had some processed foods. Some things started appearing in boxes. First one was Jell-O, very processed food. Another one was cans of food. And then started with the frozen foods. And then we started getting, well, how could we make it a little easier? Let's have boxes of Kraft mac and cheese. That's getting to the ultra processed. So you go from whole foods, processed foods, more highly processed foods, and finally what we do, ultra processed foods. And if you want to know, well, what is it's sort of hard to see the difference. And sometimes you can look at oatmeal. Oatmeal, it's not quite a whole food. It's been slightly processed because you're not eating the actual oat kernel off the plant. So it's been somewhat changed. But when you buy those packages of oatmeal, the flavored packages of oatmeal, that's more ultra processed. Okay, so often we can say ultra processed food is made in a plant, not grown on a plant. You know what this word is, right? You've been paying attention. Hyper palatable. I know Cindy told me that you learned about hyper palatable. It's designed to be almost irresistible. And then it has a long shelf life. We're so grateful because we don't have to be, you know how expensive it is. If I had to send potatoes all the time, it would take a long time to get them to the store, and then they might go bad. But if I have potato chips, you can keep those for years. So long shelf life. And then ultra processed foods are made of several ingredients like salt, oil, and sugar, you know that, and fats, and includes substances that wouldn't be found in your mother's kitchen or your kitchen, or even in an industrial kitchen generally. So they're processed. It's what Cindy told you about, what things they use in the chemistry labs, okay? And ultra-processed foods are indeed taking over our shelves. In the 90s, there were 70,000 food products. And now there's 400,000. And from what I know that my citation was a couple years old, so this could be up to 100,000. We might be even that far. We have to keep producing foods in slightly different ways so that you buy, because I'm forced to encourage you to buy. That's what marketing is all about. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. The big hook with ultra-processed foods is that it's darn convenient. You know, you want to make a potato salad, you have to peel the potato and, cook it. I mean, even in the kitchen after it's, when you take that whole thing. However, if I want to buy potato salad all mixed, maybe in a box that I just add water, that's ultra-processed. And people are busy these days. We don't have a whole lot of women who stay at home and want to cook all day. So we got to make it convenient. So the way we do it is, one of the first convenience foods was Jiffy cakes. Okay, and then we started getting TV dinners. And then, oh boy, Lunchables. I wish I would have invented that, boy. Lunchables are supposed substitute for lunch for children. We just heard some news stories that they have lead in them, so they may be going down. But And not to mention there's no nutrition in, Lunchables. But anyway, it's not our product. We don't have to worry about it. Pop-Tarts. And then we can even get into ready-made meals where you don't even have to cook them. For a while you had to add some ingredients to it. And then pretty soon, frozen, they were pretty much, all you had to do is heat them. And now we've got things like, well, Pop-Tarts, I guess you have to put in a toaster. But, we have several whole meals that you don't have to cook at all. You might have to zip them in the microwave. That's about it. Convenience. A lot of it is about convenience. So I would say that's the big hook. But there are some other hooks, and we'll take a look at that on the next slide. When you take a natural product, let's say corn, and you end up with cheese puffs, you have all that equipment to use the hydrolyzer, the emulsifier, the this and that, and those are all expensive. But once you get into production and make a lot of them, it's really cheaper. And I'll show you that on the next slide. This is a big secret. You don't need to go out and tell everybody about this, but as processing increases, profits increase because we can make it cheaper, even though we have to pay for the initial investment of making those cheese puffs. But once we can make it, remember I told you about shelf life? It'll last forever. And so you can bring it and send a whole bunch to a grocery store, and you're not sending the original corn. How long does corn last in a grocery store? The whole food corn. So it turns out it's much cheaper. Again, that concept, as food processing goes up, generally profit goes up. And we like that because we like profit. So that's one of the hooks as far as, so what does that mean? We can sell it cheaper. So that's, people love convenience, but processed food is often much cheaper. And that's why you like it and buy it. So that's the second hook. And we'll move on. There's those profits going right up. Okay, the next question was, what other market approaches have been successful? And what I'd say is, I'm a marketer, remember? I know how to kind of, remember how Cindy said she manipulates the taste buds? We manipulate your emotions because people like to feel good when they're eating. And we make that happen. Here's a classic example of the Colonel encouraging eating fried chicken. Oh, it's a party. The Colonel's here. We're all having chicken together. That's marketing to the emotions, connecting the feel good, we're all together here, and the food. Ronald McDonald, he's classic. If Ronald's in the room, we should probably be eating his food because we feel happy eating Happy Meals, right? Marketing to the emotions can involve events like Super Bowl. How many commercials did you see? And it may not be true that, being with the crowd watching a game will make you feel even better if you're drinking our beer, but that's marketing to the emotions, to make you feel like, oh, I'm part of a bigger picture. I'm manipulating the emotions because you supposedly will feel happier. Okay? There's a couple other things we do. We sponsor sports events sometimes. Oh, that's fun. And we sponsor even ones like the diabetic convention. Oh, we're there. We want to talk to those dietitians so that they don't feel so bad about us. Maybe they think that we're peddling, inexpensive but dangerous foods. But if we can give them big bucks, and then we can have a booth, or we can, give them some things. Oh yeah, they gave us a pack of Coke each for attending this. We do that a lot. We try to infiltrate ourselves with we try to be influencers. That's what marketing is, right? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Other things we do, about this, supersizing. Look at, I bet you folks can't even see in the back of the room, see the tiny little cups and burgers and French fries that were given out in 1950 as an adult version. It wasn't the Happy Meal, folks. This was the adult version. Well, now, look at those sizes. Now, that's something that's value-ridden, isn't it? Well, we convince you, and it's true. We don't have to pay a whole lot for an extra cup or a little extra Coke. And yet people think they're getting a big bargain, so they'll go for the super gulp. Okay? So that's one of the marketing strategies we use. We try to let you know that you're getting this great bargain when you buy more. And we like it because you buy more. All right? And then we also multiple media messaging. That means we bombard you. You've heard all the commercials, not just, used to be just in print, and then on TV and radio. And now we've got the internet, thank goodness. We can advertise so much. So we used a mixed media messaging approach. And then, of course, you got to get them when they're young. You know, it's important that you teach kids about tasty food. I didn't say healthy, I said tasty food. So we start them really young. And, that works. Because then they have that in their brain. If their parents take them to the grocery store, oh, I want that. I like that clown. I like that, super character. I want that kind of cereal. So that's how we market to the little ones. Okay, I'm thinking we're winding down. Oh, that's a big question. What are our goals? Well, we used to just want to sell food. And then we wanted to sell food that is a little addictive. And then we wanted to sell it, I don't want to just stay in grocery stores. I want to sell food everywhere. So we sell food in, you go buy tires, you're going to have food. You go buy office supplies, big thing just before you check out, food. Our goal is everywhere, and it's also all the time. So we sell a lot of snack items so that you can eat every day, all the time, everywhere. That's our goal. Kind of global, but we're doing a pretty good job of it. We've really spread beyond the grocery store. Okay, question 7. Aren't you concerned that some of the company's products are contributing to chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and obesity? Why don't you make healthier foods? I think we got a couple of health nuts in the crowd, but I'll answer it. Well, let me tell you a little story about some companies who tried to do that. Campbell Soup tried to cut down on sodium in some of its soups. People didn't like it. They demanded, and I wanted it to taste like it used to, which meant salt went up, sodium went up, and maybe high blood pressure went up too. But you got to give people what they want, right? We've gotten people so used to, higher levels of fat and salt and sugar, they're going to be disappointed if we don't go. We did a pretty good job of training those taste buds. Okay, in 2003, Kraft tried to limit salt, fat, and sugar in some of its products. Well, it took a nosedive. Kraft pretty quickly resumed its fat, salt, and sugar in some of its products. Now, PepsiCo launched a healthier food campaign promoting its good for you line. Well, it wasn't good for their bottom line. And people said, no, I want the not so good. But, and that's what they got. So, in so many ways, we found maybe we've done too good a job because people, want the taste. So, that's one of the reasons we don't make healthier foods. All right? And we'll go on. Last question. Cindy warned me you were going to ask this. Well, do you eat the SOS foods? Well, somebody might have noticed I've got a little belly going here. And I told you, I'm on the road a lot. I need convenience. I can't stop and cook a healthy meal. So I eat a lot of our products. But as I said, My doctors told me I've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and aiming towards diabetes, but I have to have convenience because I'm used to it and I don't know another way. So what I'd say is it all balances out. They pay me really well here. So I am eating a lot of convenience foods, but it balances out. I get paid really well. I like my job. So it works out for me. So yes, I do really enjoy, and convenience is the main thing. I think I need to go. So I'm on my way. I understand that your escort plant-based Joan is going to be back with you. So I'll let her come and be with you in just a second.
Bye, man.
Bye. Okay, now I can step away from here. Now you know what you're dealing with, right? There's whole armies out there aimed against you. And I've only ever had one person in an audience come up to me and say, I thought you were about healthy foods. And I said, this is all facetious, but you all seem to get it. So hopefully you knew I was telling a few things that are reflective of what we're facing now. A whole army of folks like this. They design and promote unhealthy pseudo foods. We don't call them foods. Notice I said food products a lot of times because Cheetos are not food. There's a lot of things in your grocery shelves that are food-like substances, some people call them. Or some people say fake food. But there's a lot of focus on creating hyper-palatable food-like products that are almost irresistible. Okay? And then we've got some of those folks on the staff, those researchers, they promote pseudoscience. They're paid by the food corporations, and you can design a study, a poorly designed study, that'll show, they may not show that Cheetos are healthy or Lucky Charms are healthy, but they're no worse than, just all you need to do is create a little doubt. And that's what they do. Again, we got folks who can develop supersized and do real creative emotional marketing. And remember, the marketing folks have big budgets. You wouldn't believe how these food corporations, have such huge budgets because there's so much competition. So for all those reasons, your taste buds are fighting, I wouldn't say a losing battle, but it can be discouraging. But before you just give up and grab for one of those unhealthy treats, I want to tell you how you can avoid being hooked. And that'd be, okay. Or if you're already hooked, let's go on to the next slide. Here's the solution, folks. First of all, learn to read labels. Do not look at anything on the front. They're going to say natural. They're going to say made from real potatoes. Well, in this case, they did start with potatoes, but some foods, made with real peaches. And then you look at this peach kind of thing, and maybe they threw in 1 teaspoon of peach flavoring, that may have come originally from a little bit of peach. So maybe you get, an 1/8 of a peach, and you're thinking, well, it said peach, So be very careful. Don't ever read this. You look at this, the fat grams, the fiber, the important nutrients. And that would be a whole nother class, reading labels carefully. Jeff Novak is a dietitian. He does an excellent presentation on food labels, if you want to look him up. N-O-V-I-C-K, I think it is. Or no, it's a V, N-O-V-I-C-K. You can reclaim your manipulated taste buds, your poor little taste buds. But it's not going to be, it's not painful, but you're going to say, blah, this tastes pretty bad. But we know people, and I gave you that example of the milk. We can do the same thing with sugar and salt. That, fruit for some people doesn't taste very sweet at all. Yeah, compared to cakes and pies, But if you can go back, and it might take up to 6 weeks to retrain your taste buds. You can definitely do it. And you might want to look up, Google, how to lose your sense of for salt or use your taste for salt. There are there are explanations how to do that. And then realize what they're doing when they're pulling your strings with that emotional marketing, especially to your kids. There's lots of resources out there. Most of my research came from this book, Michael Moss, Salt. Oh, and you have handouts. Did you all get handouts? I don't know where those handouts are. Oh, they're in the back. That's where we decided to put them. So you have a little bit of steps that you have to earn. You have 4 pages, two pages back to back. And this book is on there, so you don't have to write anything down. And some other very healthy books. And, very helpful books. There are other authors that would be very helpful. He has a TED Talk, if you're into TED Talks. And you say, Joan, I don't have time to read, but I would listen to a TED Talk. You'll find Michael Moss there. And then there are some great sites. I'm actually a volunteer for nutritionfacts.org, and Dr. Michael Greger has lots to say about pseudoscience as well as pseudofoods. So I think you'll find, how are we doing for time? I see exactly on time. That doesn't happen very often. I talk a lot. I did want to leave time for questions. So if you have questions, but some of you, I know it's been a long day. You've already heard a lot. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make it a little entertaining, because I thought you might be flagging. You know, this is my most hammy program, but I love doing it. So I appreciate your being here. If you have questions, why don't I just step up here, and then other people won't feel guilty they're leaving in the middle. We're pretty much done now. And then you can take your handouts and protect yourself so you don't get hooked or get unhooked. That's what I want. Thank you.